Humans have progressed a long way since the days of roaming the African plains over 200,000 years ago, or so we like to think. We developed language roughly 50,000 years ago, and basic society was added to our vast list of accomplishments roughly 7,000 years ago. So surely that means modern humans have progressed past the need for primitive instincts and behaviors, right? Some would like to think that we as a species are beyond those ancient ways, but the fact is that we are still controlled by the same basic things. Raw emotions and instincts still have an ability to switch off our logical brains and take us back to the cavemen that knew only one thing: survival. Fear is one of these emotions with a notorious ability to manipulate people and control them in ways that make our moral compasses cringe with poor decisions and actions. While we would like to assume that we have total control over what we do and how we act, many stories, both fictional and real, explicitly show that we can still do foolish or wrong things when in situations with intense fear and stress. Fear specifically has to be one of the most significant concepts in books and movies worldwide. It feels like in every story there is always at least one moment of fear in regards to things such as death and failure. I mean, after all, can anyone name a climax of a story that didn't even have the slightest element of fear? Two texts, The Crucible and Train to Busan, explore this element of fear and how it alters human behavior. Both texts are set in worlds where people are required to live and act in certain ways, otherwise they run the risk of putting themselves in danger. This ever-so-present element of fear and uncertainty in the characters' minds forces them into acting out of character and doing what is best for themselves and their self-preservation. Arthur Miller's play, The Crucible, is a deep dive into human behavior in stressful and dangerous situations through a fictionalized recount of the 17th century Salem witch hunt. It serves as an allegory for hysteria and persecution during the McCarthy era, an era where fear is constant and lurking around every corner. It shows us that during times of panic, people like ourselves are mostly unable to handle it well or act with reason and logic. This idea is hinted at by Danforth, a high judge who is head of the Salem witch hunt, when he says, "We burn a hot fire here. It burns down all concealment." This represents that people, no matter their confidence or character, are changed in court or when under pressure in general. This could also be seen as a metaphor for melting away exterior characteristics and reducing people into their core, primitive functions and behaviors. People such as Mary Warren fit this description, such as when she flipped in court and went from defending innocent people to siding with the girls, but importantly, only when her life was on the line. This change in character was emphasized by Miller through intense imagery and overly dramatic stage directions when Mary, pointing at Proctor, yells, "You're the devil's mare." Her sudden flip in character was forced through the threat of her own hanging, which gave readers and viewers alike a sense of empathy for her situation, showing that we all understand what she did and would maybe even do it ourselves. The other condemned souls also had the same thought process when they pleaded guilty to witchcraft and accused others in order to save themselves. John Proctor also fits into this vast generalization, but in a much different way. He actually refused to plead guilty to witchcraft, and he refused to have his name rubbed in the dirt. This was highlighted through a hyperbole when Proctor, with a cry of his soul, says, "How may I live without my name? I have given you my soul, leave me my name." This extreme exaggeration showed that Proctor valued his reputation far beyond that of his life, and this ultimately ended with his execution. His execution is also linked to another blatantly obvious moment of fear, when Paris realizes the magnitude of what he'd done and discovers the threat that the townspeople posed to him. Anastrophe is used in this instance to deepen the meaning of his words when he says, "You cannot hang this sort. There is danger for me. I dare not step outside at night." This puts an emphasis on the sense of personal fear that Paris feels, and that only now that he is threatened, he wants the executions to be stopped. The other text that I mentioned before, Train to Busan, is a South Korean film set in an apocalyptic world where people are given two choices: death or survival. It follows a group of people desperate to reach the safety of the military who will provide them with protection from the zombie hordes that have swept through most of the population. This journey is one of hysteria and panic, as death looms around every corner, both literally and also in the minds of the survivors. This sense of danger regularly messes with people and forces them to act incredibly selfishly, as people willingly throw other people headfirst into danger in order to save themselves. Repetition of these outlandish behaviors through both Yong-suk and many of the other characters emphasizes how commonplace these actions are, and that their selfishness is not out of place in scenarios where death is a possible outcome. An example of Yong-suk acting out of fear is when he is seen deliberately throwing people into the swarm of zombies in pursuit in order to save himself. A wide camera angle is used to emphasize the damage that his actions are causing, as he is only a small part of the screen and everyone around him makes up the much bigger picture. This showed that he didn't act with logic and reason, as killing multiple people in this case is stupid when countless deaths are easily avoidable. These acts of self-preservation are supported by low camera angles that are used throughout the film to further highlight that the value he holds for himself is well and truly above everyone else's, and that he will do whatever it takes to survive. These events are often frustrating to watch as a person's sense of logic and calculation is removed when fear is introduced and panic is created. So before I wrap things up, let me ask you one more question. It's mainly for those who are still reluctant to believe me. So, ask yourself one thing. You're on a train car headed towards a split in the track. You are driving said train and get to decide which direction you travel. As you observe the paths ahead, one option is to run over two random people who are tied to the track and cannot escape. The other is to take yourself and the cart off the edge of a tall cliff to certain death. You need to choose one, and there is no way to escape or cheat your way out. Now, when you look truly deep into your soul and decide, why did you choose to save yourself? Thank you.